All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And yes, this is a different angle of the shack than what you're traditionally seeing. But now that I've gotten moving around and trying to kind of tilt towards the CNC a little bit, get some room dedicated for it, I've had to do a little remodeling. So those of you that hadn't checked out the channel in a little while, I've moved things around. I've built myself this huge 64 by 64 inch table over here. And the plan is eventually I'm going to fill that up with CNC. But for right now, guys, Genmitsu reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to try out their 60/50. And since I was wanting to upgrade from the 40/40 and the 30/30, why not? So I've been working with the machine for a few days. Found some things that I like, found some things that I don't like. A bigger CNC is a better CNC. I learned all the fundamentals. I learned how to do it on the smaller machines, and I'm gradually moving up. So, but today, guys, we're going to go over the 60/50. I'm going to do a real breeze through on the assembly and everything. There's lots of videos out there. The machine's been out for a while. There's lots of good assembly videos. So I'm just going to hit a few high points, give you my impressions of it, what it's capable of doing, and a few little tweaks that I've had to do to the machine and some of the stuff that I had to make it perform the way I wanted it to. So if that's something you're into, guys, stick around. We'll be right back. So first of all, this is the table that I built. And guys, I built this thing out of 2x4s and 3/4 inch plywood. I did reinforce the table heavily. The legs, the main frame, outer band and everything is all doubled up 2x4s. So it's very sturdy. It does not move real easy. That way, when the machine's working, it doesn't jar it. Now it does vibrate a little bit, but it does not move. It's really heavy duty table. I don't know if you saw the pictures and everything as I was progressing to this build. But obviously, I'm glad I had it because the 60/50 would not have fit anywhere else in the shop other than my little working table that I use over there. So the assembly it wasn't bad. It was a whole bunch of parts, but the one thing that I will say is it does give you insight to where everything is. They did a lot of the minuscule tasks like putting the wires in the chains and stuff like that for you that you didn't have to do. It is a very heavy box. This would be one of those times if you're building this thing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to invite somebody to come over. Some of the parts are kind of heavy, putting them in place. They did do you a favor, and like on the gantry here, it does have recesses where the gantry sits down in there. So if you're doing it by yourself, it's not that bad, but just be careful, don't mash your finger. But it'll sit down in there. It has just a little small channel that does a pretty good job of holding it in place while you start the screws. But all in all, other than getting the box into the building, which I brought it in a piece at a time, one person can handle all of the pieces as long as you're careful. The gantry is a little heavy, but you know, if you're my size and have decent strength, you should be able to put that thing up there. But the machine does have limit switches on all 6 axes. It comes with a smaller spindle, but guys, I put that on another machine straight out of the box. I went straight on it with the Makita multiple speed router. This is the same one that everybody usually uses. I think it's a 701 or 7010 model. The one thing that I did have to do, the dust shoe that I had for the DeWalt was a 69 millimeter. This is a 65 millimeter machine as far as the router goes. So I had to do a little engineering to get this to work. Also, the dust shoe wasn't coming down low enough with this one to collect a lot of the dust. So I had to manufacture myself using a 3D printer, a adapter slash extension to use to connect everything. The downside is you do have to take it off when you change the bit, but that gives you an opportunity when you put it back on to adjust it to where it needs to be, because you can raise and lower the dust shoe. I've kind of found that this configuration works really well, but these are 3D printed parts. I have been using a 3D printer a lot this week, getting this machine up and going with adapters for this, adapters for the hose. Made myself a little adapter for the 2.5 inch hose that goes into this. This was designed to be used with a shop vac, not a 2.5 inch hose. So I made myself a little adapter that plugs into there. But that's why I think every shop should have a 3D printer. But when you get ready to change the bit, you do have to take it off to access the nut easily. But then you just put it back on, raise this up, and I've got this little dust collection clamp that has the butterfly on it, and it's as simple as tighten that up and she's good to go. So once I've changed the bit, just snap that back on there, reinsert the hose, and I'm off to go. The only other thing that I've done, guys, is with the other machines that I had, you use the offline controller. With this one, they send candle. I did reach out to Genmitsu and ask them about an offline controller. Currently, there is not one for this. But if you have an older PC that will run candle, that's what I'm doing. I've got an old laptop that has a bad battery, and I need to upgrade that in case power flickers. But I'm using it to run the machine with, using the candle software that came with the machine on the thumb drive. And as you can see, I've made myself a little box. And yes, guys, I know I could have made this without the CNC, but what's the fun in that? I've made myself a little box. This thing does have a wire mesh screen, and I'll kind of show you the process real quick of how this thing went together. This is just to hold the Z-probe. It does have a really nice Z-probe. I did have to add me a little magnet. I just rare earth magnet onto the clip there, and that allows me to be able to just reach under there and it attaches itself, not having to worry about whether I have, can get it around the bit or around the nut. It just magnetizes to the nut, and you're good to go to check your Z-axis. And this little pouch right here was just something I come up with to have a place to store it so it's not like in the way. Also, I have added myself, as you can see, kind of inspired from server rooms that I've been in before, but I've kind of made myself a little U-shaped channel here that allows me to run cabling, extension cords or whatever that way, as well as I use the same brackets that I cut on the machine over here to hold my hose that I use for cleanup, and that just makes things a little bit easier. But all in all, guys, the machine's really rigid. I'm running with these bits around 70 inches per minute, and it's doing a really good job. My biggest concern right now is the Z-axis. I had to kind of play with the settings for candle on setting the Z. If you go too fast, it's terribly inaccurate because it actually shoves the little sensor a little bit. So I've had to play with the speeds. And in the meantime, just as a precaution, I took me a piece of plywood and put on top of the MDF and T-tracks. I'm not a big fan of the clamping system that they use. I've got some others ordered that I think would be better, but until I get the new wire off of it, I just wanted to have a little bit of added security not to hit these metal T-tracks down here. And so I've been running just a scrap piece of the 3/4 birch that I had from the table build, kind of as a spoil board. This also allows me to go ahead and set my depth maybe a millimeter or so thicker when I'm cutting plywood, so I don't wind up with that onion skin layer on there from time to time. So I just go ahead and bite the bullet, set it for about a millimeter deeper than what it actually needs to be, let it cut into this, but it gives me nice clean cuts on the backside. So that's kind of how I'm running it now. I am using the Wind dust collection. I do have a relay on it, and this is going to be loud, guys, but when the router is turned on, it automatically activates the dust collection. And because it's cold right now, I'm using the bag instead of blowing it outside. That way I don't constantly recycle my air from sucking in cold air through drafty locations and blowing it out the wall. So far, the dust is manageable. I'm not saying it's getting all of it, but it is really helping clean up. And I'm going to show you some footage of the machine cutting, and you'll see that it is reasonably clean now that I've made modifications to the dust chute and everything. It doesn't throw a whole lot of dust. It's keeping my work area a lot cleaner than I had anticipated from my experience with the other machines. But I put a little more work in with the 3D printing the parts and adapting everything to make it work the way that I wanted it to, and got it going. I'm going to show a couple of rolls of video of the machine working and some of the follow-up, so you'll be able to see some of the process that goes into it. Also, I've got one of my impacts over here that I use to screw material down to the spoil board. And like I said, guys, this material is probably not the best material to use, but at the time I did not have a piece of 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch MDF to use. I do plan next time I go to the hardware store on picking up some 1/2 inch MDF. One, that'll give me a little more Z-axis clearance here, Plus, MDF is a little easier to go back, and if I need to go back and resurface it to get it smooth again later because I've used it up, that's cool. But for now, this is going to work until I go to the hardware store. So any of you guys that were like, why are you using that? It's because I didn't want to go to the hardware store, basically, and it was here. So there you have it. All right, guys, this is me making the sign that's on the front of the table right there today, and I masked the material in order to be able to go back and paint it after I was done. And I'll drop a link down below if you're interested in that, if you've never tried it. It's pretty neat. You do have to use either a down cut bit, or you can get by with a V-bit with minimal distortion and tape being pulled off. But it works best with either a down cut or a V-bit if you're doing text. All right, guys, so next up, I'm doing a little cutting. This is some of the 3/4 birch plywood that I had left over from the table that I've been playing with today, making brackets for the shop and all that. And I decided that I wanted to make a little box for the front of the table to put the Z probe in, and that's what this is. Now, as you can see, the dust collection using Genmitsu's 69 millimeter dust shoe there, and a couple of Clack Shack engineered 3D printed adapters, I've been able to get the brushes down to the material to the point to where there's very, very little chips coming out from under the brushes. Now, keep in mind, I'm not running a shop vac either. I'm using the Wind chip extractor, and I've got that thing sealed up to where there's a whole lot of suction going into that dust shoe. But it's doing a really good job, and as you can see, the machine cuts out really nice. Once it gets through cutting it out, I just have to take, because I'm screwing the material down, take it out, and you can see there was some dust inside the cuts, but very minimal dust at all. And just knocking these little tabs off here so that I can move those guys over to be sanded and put my box together, and you'll see it on the front of the table. All right, so what kind of stuff can you make with a CNC? Guys, this machine has opened up doors for me. When I had the smaller machines, I kept the CNC basically for doing fine carving, 3D carving, some light cutting, but since I've got this guy, I have made myself a nice little holder for my DeWalt tools. I've got this thing, because of the size of the 6050, you can only do up to 600 millimeters. So this is actually 2 pieces, but each piece holds 4 tools, and I just put 2 of them together. And it's made, basically it has a recess so that they can't slide out, but when you hook them up there, they connect. And that's some more scrap from the table build. So I'm getting some use out of that. But let me show you some more cool projects that I've made. All right, some of you may already know about it because of the short that I did the other day. Local charity in town that I like to contribute to is having an auction, and they asked me to make some pieces for the auction. So Brandy and I came up with a few designs. And guys, this is a CNC project, but it is also a laser project. This is slots for Ritz crackers, and I've got the bowls, but guys, my hands are really dry. It's hard to hold on to these ceramic things, so I'll try not to drop it. But it's got these recesses here that these little bowls sit in, and this is a serving tray basically. Brandy says that you put like hot dips in here, like maybe, I don't know, dips that go with Ritz crackers. Y'all know what it is. I'm not very domesticated, but it's got places for 2 of the bowls, and each side is symmetrical. You have crackers on one side, on each side, and then you have a bowl on each side. So I thought that was kind of cool. Used some of the handles that I bought these for stove covers, but they were a little small. So now I use charcuterie boards and whatnot. And we also did an engrave of a magnolia leaf, because guys, this is magnolia wood. So we decided that we would put the laser engraved magnolia, and there's nothing done to that, guys. That's straight off of the laser. And then we've coated these with mineral oil to weatherproof them and make them food safe, so you can eat off of them without having any poisonous chemicals on there. But got that done with the 6050. All of these I've done on the 6050 this weekend, so that's why I've been scarce. Also, some of you may have seen these before. This is my little deviled egg holder, and Brandy and I were, we were wanting to make a set to offer at this auction. I feel like that'll bring up the price. It'll be really cool, have matching stuff. It's made out of the same board as these other pieces as well. But if you're not serving deviled eggs, guys, you can flip it over and use it to serve whatever, cheese board. You can put you some cheese on here or whatever you want to put on here, and it's got the same design on the back of it. So that's the second piece that I made on the machine. The third piece is this guy. And no, this is not an extremely large paddle, although it would work if you need to whoop your kids while you're preparing supper. But it has the same engraving on it, so you could use this as a serving tray or whatever, put a bowl on, but its intended purpose was to hold your cast iron. And so that when you're cooking breakfast, if you have Formica on your countertops and you're not one of those folks that have the nice marble or granite countertops and you're worried that the cast iron skillet could burn it, you can use this to set it on. And if you're really worried that you're gonna mess this up, you can always just flip it over on the back and use the back as well. So that's the 3 things that we've got so far. So that's some of the projects that I've been working on with the machine, besides all of the upgrades. I mean, look at the cable management, guys. See the J-hooks going down through there? Makes that nice little carriage for all the cables that I may or may not need. And then I got my little box for the Pro. I mean, cable management is tight on this machine, I will say that. But first impressions of the machine, guys, after having it for about a week and really running the crap out of it, it's doing a really good job. I'm happy with the performance of it. I'm really excited to be getting into a bigger machine, but to be honest, other than the work area, if this machine was what I was running from now on, it's doing a good job. I'm getting really good speeds. Jobs that were taking me 2 or 3 hours on the 4040 now take like 15, 20 minutes tops. So I mean, it's a game changer if you can afford it, if you need the larger workspace, if you have room to house it. That's a big thing though, guys. Make sure you have somewhere that you can put this machine because it needs a home. You're not gonna wanna be moving this around. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up for today. That's my initial thoughts on the 6050. It is definitely a keeper and has stepped up the CNC game here at the shack. Until next time, be safe and have a good day.